if you're seeing a particular joy in our faces and in mine in particular, it's because the technology has worked, and we have everybody here. We're joined by Josh Childress, Stanford grad, not just an alum, Stanford grad, got the degree, 8 years in the NBA, number 6 pick by the Atlanta Hawks in 2004, if I'm not mistaken. Also played 6 years overseas and was revolutionary in signing with Olympiacos a deal, turning down a deal with the Atlanta Hawks and signing with Olympiacos. And first of all, welcome, Josh. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's great to see you and catch up with you.
Appreciate the time, appreciate the opportunity. And one caveat,
yes.
one note. I did not turn down a deal from Atlanta because I never got the deal from Atlanta.
Woo!
So it's one thing we can touch on. So
thank you. As soon as we're done, I'm going to Wikipedia and I'm making sure that they get that correct because that's the propaganda that is out there. That they offered you I believe it was supposedly like a 5-year, $33 million deal, and you got $320 from Olympiacos, and that made it a no-brainer with all the taxes and everything else. We will get all that straightened out. But first of all, welcome to the show. Bostjan, you two have a little bit in common in terms of both having played in the NBA and then going over at the same time and playing overseas.
Yeah, that's right. We played few seasons together in the NBA. I got drafted in 2002, so I was there for a little bit sooner. But the same summer. It was a weird summer. I mean, at least the players I talked to, and I'm sure Josh, you'll agree, like it was a weird summer, that 2008, of how the free agency was going, especially for the players that were considered mid-level or close to mid-level or just above the mid-level. And at that time, the European market really opened up. And it was a few of us that went back, not just us two, but Nenad Krstic, he went back, and Jorge Garbajosa, Earl Boykins went back, Gordon Giricek went back, and some others as well. So it's been an interesting summer, 2008 for sure.
So my big question for you, Josh, to start out with is simply, it was somewhat of a revolutionary move that you made in terms of leaving and not trying to stay in the NBA, but saying, you know what, I'm going to explore this with Olympiacos. What was it that inspired you or gave you the confidence to make that move?
It's a great question. And part of that is, kind of tied to where I'm at now. So I'm up in the Bay Area, up near Stanford. I had a couple of meetings here. Going to school there, I was exposed to so many different people, different cultures. I grew up in LA. And so thinking outside of the box, having been around so many interesting, unique folks at Stanford really, gave me the confidence to feel that I could live in a different country, not speak the language, but more importantly, just to take a risk, a career risk. I felt like it was something that would, be beneficial for me as a person, as a player, and I welcome that. So it's a function of just being a naturally curious individual, but also just being exposed to different people, and understanding that it's there is life outside of the U.S. and it's just about experiencing that.
And what was the biggest adjustment, the first thing that you kind of ran into that let you know that you were doing something unique?
The media coverage. I was a rotation guy, and obviously I was a part of the Hawks organization, but I wasn't like a superstar by any means. And so as I made that announcement, I got media outlet coverage from everywhere. I was on every TV show and all the jazz, and so that let me know that something that I did was a little bit different and unique, but also I say the support, but the feedback that I got from the NBA also let me know, not the NBA as an entity, but team owners and players and other guys, let me know that what I was doing was something that was pretty cool and unique.
In this show, in this podcast, we're talking a lot about, players who either are Europeans and then they go to the NBA and the adjustments, or vice versa, right? American players playing in Europe. For you, speaking strictly about Olympiacos experience, and we'll touch on the game or the style maybe a little bit later, but just getting to Greece and being in one of the most passionate fan atmospheres you can imagine in the world. I mean, did you expect what you saw there, or it was like every day was like a new kind of a wow for you of being in that environment?
Yeah. Definitely a wow. I never experienced that before in my life. I mean, these fans are born into being Olympiacos fans. It is a way of life for them. And so, as I get off the plane in Athens, it's full of people. I'd never experienced that before in my life either, right? I mean, you go through the draft process. You win games, you lose games in college. All that stuff is great. NBA, has its own fandom, but nobody's ever waiting by at the airport for me. And so, getting off the plane and getting my baggage and having fans out there cheering and chanting was this incredible feeling. But it just shows how passionate the fans are there.
Mm-hmm. But living in Athens was it comfortable for you in that sense, or did you feel like even going around city, like fans would just notice and ask you for whatever happened last game, what how's going to be the next game? Like you just couldn't I never played in Athens, but I had a bunch of friends who did. Mm-hmm. Everybody loved it there, but at some point they said it can get a little bit tiring of people just constantly being so obsessed. Like everywhere you go is just basketball. That's
exactly it. That's exactly it. And that happened to me, early days there where, you move to a new country. There's obviously a lot of excitement about, me coming over there, the contract, all those things. And so, I'm embracing that and I'm enjoying all of that initially. I'm at the nice restaurants and, the club here and this and this. I was a young guy back then. And you learn, you're just setting yourself up for criticism. You're setting yourself up for all those things. And so it took me probably, half the season to really kind of understand, how I need to move, the places I can go that don't have, the Olympiacos fans or that are a little bit more quiet. But, it was a bit of a shock, man. And as it relates to the fans, a lot of people that I interacted with maybe didn't speak English. And so I couldn't understand, them criticizing the game or asking me what was going on. But they're passionate fans. And so, it wouldn't be, surprising to see somebody, I even had like a cop pull me over. It's like, I'm Olympiacos through and through. I love what you're doing. But also on the other side, Panathinaikos fans would do the same thing. So it was definitely an experience that I'll never forget. But, those fans over there are different.
Did he have reason to pull you over, or was he just pulling you over to let you know an Olympiacos fan and I recognize you and you know what, we need 20 the next game, okay?
Right. Absolutely had no reason to pull me over, but it was just to let me know that he was an Olympiacos fan, and that's normal there. I mean, guys would stop you on the street and they'd roll up their sleeve and see Olympiacos tattoo or what have you. So it is a way of life. I truly believe that. And, those fans are unlike anything I've ever seen.
One of the reasons we wanted to have you on is because we had Kyle Hines on as a guest. And he mentioned that you inspired him with the move that you made. As you look at it now, because I think it was kind of revolutionary. That was the first time that anybody got as much attention as you did for being an NBA player going and playing overseas. Did you realize at the time what you were doing by making that move? Was there an inspiration like, hey, I want to do something different, or how much of it was the business of the NBA and also kind of like, hey, you know what? You don't own the game. You might own the NBA, but you don't own the game. I have more options than you might think.
Yeah, that's a great question. It had nothing to do with me wanting to be revolutionary in any capacity. I mean, I wasn't that thoughtful as a 24, 25-year-old young man. But and we can get into this because it's kind of flowing into the contract piece. What did happen? So when you talk about that summer, I keep wanting to call you Boki. So
yeah, perfect.
All right. So Boki, talk about that summer. So that summer, the Atlanta Hawks ended up changing GMs. So Billy Knight was a GM that drafted me. In 4 years I was there, we had a great relationship, and he essentially said, "You stay healthy, and you kind of continue to produce as you're producing. We'll make sure you get taken care of, kind of market rate, right?" Which I was totally fine with. And then the ownership group ended up bringing in Ric Sund that summer, fired Billy Knight. And so Rick comes in, and he's supposed to be kind of the contract guru, apparently. And so he kind of put me on the back burner. Now, in my mind, I tried to do everything the right way. Professional, showed up all, on time, all that jazz, did the community work. I was doing all the things that I felt like I was supposed to do, obviously performing on the court. And so now I'm in a situation where I don't have any sort of opportunity to get a contract. I'm kind of in limbo. I'm a restricted free agent. And so I go and my agent's kind of working the phones. And so we had 2 sign and trades. And I don't remember the exact players that were in the sign and trades, but it was with Phoenix Suns and with the San Antonio Spurs. We all know at that time, both of those teams were as good as it gets, right? And I grew up, idolizing over playing for the Spurs and Popovich and everything that they stood for. Coming from Stanford, I was a system player, all that jazz. And so, I met with Pop at Summer League, and he said, "This is the deal we have for you. Hopefully we can make something happen." So I'm super excited about that. But I also met with the Olympiacos, team at Summer League as well. And so we continue down the track, and then I realized, Sund isn't really going to entertain any of these ideas, these opportunities. So now I'm in a situation where I have to wait until he decides, that he's ready to offer me a contract. And the market's drying up. Boki, you mentioned it, like that summer was just weird.
That sounds very familiar to how you're describing. I mean, how my story went. But go on, please.
Yeah. And so I have two top tier teams, that I have an opportunity to join. And this guy's like, I'm making the business decision for the Atlanta Hawks. And so that's what prompted me to say, "Oh, okay, well, I have to make a business decision for Josh Childress." And that led to me actually, taking a trip over to Athens, getting the lay of the land, seeing Athens in the summer, and that made it all happen.
So it was spite. It was spite. That's how you ended up in Greece.
I just needed a deal, man.
I'll show you. No, I mean, again, you mentioned it as a 24-year-old. You have this opportunity to see. I mean, we know Atlanta was okay, but you have a chance to go to San Antonio. I totally understand where you'd feel like, hey, I want to control my own destiny. My own destiny here. As you mentioned, you didn't but that wasn't the inspiration to be revolutionary or to introduce the idea of EuroLeague being an option for NBA players. As you look back now and you look at that move and what it meant to so many guys and kind of change the perspective, where does that sit in terms of your accomplishments as a basketball player?
It's a massive honor. I mean, Kyle Hines is a European legend, right? He won so many championships there. He had a fantastic career in Europe, and there's been a ton of guys, over the years that have said something similar to me, and that means more to me than you can imagine. Just helping guys understand that basketball is a global game, and NBA is obviously the NBA, right? And it's the pinnacle of professional basketball. But, at the same time, if you're a guy who is trying to make a name for himself and, create a career, there are viable options outside of the NBA. And, that, I think, just opening that aperture for a guy like Kyle or some of the other guys where they feel comfortable playing overseas. It was fantastic. And I get guys all the time, how did you negotiate your contract? How should I be thinking about, certain things? How should I be thinking about life after basketball? What can I do, in the 10 months that I'm over here to, prepare myself? Can I take some courses? Like all those things, that stuff means more to me than a lot of the other things that I've accomplished, because I feel like I impacted the game. I might not have impacted on the court in certain ways, but as it relates to guys being comfortable and expanding the horizons of how people view their ability to make money, and play the game they love. that it's phenomenal for me.
Yeah, for sure.
And one thing is, of course, the contract, the experience of living in Greece. Like you said, the fans, everything that comes with it. But the other thing is stepping on the court, right? And carrying, number one, that jersey. Being able to carry the pressure that comes with that. I think every player learns when they play in these big European teams that it's not just entertainment; it's much more than that. And then number three, I would say, is adjusting to the style of play, which is different than the NBA, and especially was a lot different maybe 15, 20 years ago. How long did you? What I'll ask like this: what kind of issues did you see, or what kind of problems you had when you stepped on the court first? When you said, "Hey, this things work in the NBA, but here is different." The rules are different, right? No 3-second violation on defense. The court is smaller. All these things. Did it take you a lot to get used to that, or did you think that transition was maybe easier than you thought it would be?
No, transition was really tough for me, and for a few reasons. Number one, well, let's say this: when I first got there, I was balling. You're fresh, new. They don't know me, I don't know them, and so the game is flowing. I'm scoring. I'm running through the lane. Fast break, dunks, all that stuff. And then as you start to learn players, defenses started to shift. And there was an adjustment that needed to be made, and so that I think coupled with I had a coach, and we had a good team, and we had a ton of talented players. Many of those guys. And so, on one side, I have my coach saying, I don't need you to score 20 points a night. We have a fantastic team. I need you to do X, Y, Z and be, a great kind of team player, fit within the system of what we're building. On the other side, it's the pressure of I have this massive contract. In the NBA, if you're, the massive contract guy, balls in your hands, you're expected to score 20 a night and do all those things. And so I'm trying to figure out, how to manage that dynamic. In addition to the change in the game and the style of play and the physicality, I don't think people understand how physical European basketball is. And so I struggled that first year, outside shooting was never my strong suit. Obviously they're making me shoot, and I'm not getting to put the ball on the ground and get to the rack as much as I want. And so, all of those things combined made that first year challenging. And then you kind of layer in just the culture shock and all the stuff that we talked about earlier with, moving to a different country and kind of all that jazz. And so that first year was a little bit of a wake up call, for me. I had some ups and downs. I had great teammates who helped me through it. But, that transition year where most players will go play, coming out of college, they'll go play in Romania or in a lower division, and they get to work their way up. I was on the center stage, playing against, top teams, and I had to figure it out.
The foray into Greece wasn't your only trip overseas to play. You came back to the NBA and then went to Australia, if I'm not mistaken, played for the Sydney Kings. I think you played for the 36ers there as well at one point, and then wrapped up playing over in Japan. What inspired you to continue to play and to go to all these places in order to continue to play?
Yes, that's another good question. I'd gotten released from I got waived. I can't remember, from the Suns, and then I went to the Pelicans and ended up getting released. I had surgery, so I came back to Stanford to finish my degree, and I was planning on retiring. My journey wasn't as I thought it was going to be. I kind of bounced around in the NBA that second stint. I went and I started playing at Stanford with the players. And I said, I got a little bit more left in the tank here. And so ended up finishing my degree. And then when I went to Sydney, I actually leveraged that to also be kind of the springboard into what was life after basketball for me. And so I kind of put in my contract, hey, I'm going to come here obviously and do my best, but I also want you to start introducing me to business professionals in Sydney. And so it's kind of a dual purpose for me. And then I'd say the other kind of overhang there is, if you get cut or released or waived or, you kind of go through that process, it hits you, and it may damage your love for the game or confidence or what have you. And so I view Sydney as an opportunity for me to like go be the man again. Go, I got the ball in my hands. I can make decisions. I can go play and enjoy playing the game. I'm not worried about all that other stuff. And so that's what I did. I went over and I started loving basketball again. It wasn't political. It wasn't, I wasn't worried about, am I going to, make the next round of cuts or any of those things. And, that ended up being another 5 years, after that. So I went from retirement to 5 more years, just, based on, rekindling my love of the game in Sydney.
Yeah. And that wasn't like 3 different continents. I mean, Europe, then Australia, then Japan. Yeah. I moved around in Europe after my career in the NBA. And I do agree, when players get these opportunities, when the thing of playing for a certain team in a certain country becomes more than just that, and if you're susceptible, if you're open to learning about the country, learning about the culture, meeting people, getting those connections, I think in general athletes can get so much more from their careers, especially those that have those international opportunities. The smart ones, I will say, So I always tell the players that because I work with Player Association in EuroLeague now, and I always talk to the guys about when they're moving around, and I say, soak it all in as much as you can, because those connections that you make while you play, the opportunity is very short to make those connections, but then they can last basically lifetime. And like I said, those guys, the smart guys, were really going to do that. But my question is, you saw the game in Europe, you saw the game in Australia, Asia. Does it surprise? So once you go back, you retire, but then you see the continuous growth of international basketball in the NBA and what it is today. I don't know what we said, Rick, the other day, six MVPs being international or something, 6, 7, maybe 7 years.
I mean,
right?
I don't think we've had an American win the MVP since 2018.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's going to happen again.
It's not happening. Wemby's playing. It's not happening.
Yeah, right. So you having the opportunity to see the international game. Did you see that kind of becoming a thing? And I'm not talking just about MVPs, but just the game in the NBA continue to be even more internationally sense that the game will change also to become different than what it was 20 years ago because of the international influence?
Absolutely. And I think, the international players and it's the way of coaching and the style of play is it mirrors the NBA game today, right? It's a lot of movement. It's not as much one-on-one as it once was. And I think, you're starting to see that shift as well as how they're building teams. The big 3 lineup isn't the winning formula anymore. I mean, you look at OKC and Indiana, last year, I mean, they have 10, 12 deep that they can go and they can rotate in and out, and guys aren't playing 47 minutes. They're playing, 36 and 38. And, it's much more of a team centered game. So, Europe and international basketball has definitely influenced, the game more broadly. And I'd say the other thing that you see living and playing overseas is they're much more intentional in how they coach. One of my favorite teammates that I ever had was Milos Teodosic.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, I mean, he threw me some nice lobs and made me look good, but
of course.
But Milos would tell me stories about how they would spend 2, 3, 4 hours practicing on passing. Right. And, when you walk into a gym here, they just roll the balls out and let's go play pickup or,
3 hours shooting threes from 30 feet.
Exactly. And so the intentional nature and how they're training and how they're thinking about the game, I think has definitely impacted, now what is, NBA basketball.
You mentioned setting up life after basketball. Explain what your intention was and what that was.
Yeah, I mean, at the time, I had no idea. I just knew that I wanted to do something in business and wanted to start to leverage, Boki talked about it, leverage the relationships that I knew that I could get in front of any CEO or any individual in Sydney, Australia. I'm on the buses and I'm on billboards and I leveraged that opportunity to start to meet with business folks and just build my business, acumen. And so that's what it really was. It was, I knew that there's a finite time here. I was about to retire. I now, have who knows how many years left to play. Let me spend this time learning, what I want to do and who I want to be after basketball, and that's what I did.
So you spent some time on the Stanford campus, and then the Sydney opportunity comes along, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so did you go into that thinking, hey, you know what? I got another bite of the apple, and I want to take advantage of the business opportunities that I could possibly build off of my career? Was it all intentional when you took the deal with Sydney? And how did you go from just being on the campus playing pickup to signing with the Sydney Kings?
Yeah,
I know that's a multitude of it. By the way, I am so bad on this podcast. Double barreling questions is like the number one thing they taught me not to do, and I do it every time. So I apologize in advance.
No
I threw
worries.
about 3 different questions at you, but I know that you have the requisite ability to answer each and every one.
Yeah, no worries at all. So how it all went down, like I said, I was back playing. My agent called me and said, "Hey, what do you think? Are you done? What's going on?" And so I think
who was your agent, by the way?
At the time, his name was Chris Emmons.
Okay.
And so Chris, apparently the Sydney Kings called him about another one of his clients, and I can't remember which one it was. But in that process, he said, "Well, what do you think about Josh Childress?" And the GM of the Kings was like, "There's no way Josh would come here and play. Like, why would Josh come to Sydney?" And the budget that they had was modest, and so I was still getting paid by Phoenix, and so it wasn't financial. It was just an opportunity. And so I spoke with the GM of the Kings. His name was Tim Hudson. His good friend, dear friend, still to this day. But I spoke with him for about a month, and he was selling me on what Sydney could do for me outside of the court. And we had a ton of just kind of heart-to-heart conversations around how I viewed basketball at the time. And he essentially promised me, "I can guarantee you'll come over here and fall in love with the game again." And so it was Tim who really made it all happen. So thanks to Tim for all of that. But it was a phenomenal experience for me, man. And going over there with that in mind and letting him know that this is also a part of what I want to do, just set the stage. So where the team would go and do appearances with kids and stuff like that, I did those too, but I also, did the appearances with the sponsors and with the corporate partnerships. And, we signed a first of its kind partnership with Lexus while I was there, and just trying to do some cool different things, leveraging, kind of the name and the brand that I had, but also the interest in business that I had, to kind of build the brands simultaneously.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. I want to quickly, just before we let you go, I want to quickly go back to your experience in Olympiacos, mostly speaking about the highlights as far as achieving things with the team and you probably learning of how much more that means than just having those individual numbers, like you said. I believe you did play Final Four once or twice with Olympiacos. I can remember.
Twice.
What was that experience like? And I'll also give 2 questions here. The second, like Rick does, and the second one, do you know that?
We want to develop
here. But they're very connected. So one is your experience from the Final Four, and the second one, do you know that actually this year's Final Four is actually after many years back in Athens, as far as EuroLeague Final Four. So you should be thinking about coming over to visit. By the way,
definitely would try to plan that. So I played 2 Final Fours. The first one, we actually lost in the semifinals to Panathinaikos. But the atmosphere was phenomenal. I mean, there's 4 corners of the gym, and the fans from each of those teams were doing their own respective chants. And so you just have this really cool atmosphere, and everybody's going crazy. And when you play in Greece, the fans can't mix. You can't have Olympiacos and Panathinaikos fans together. And so this was now a chance for them to be in the same arena. And so it was just incredible energy. We unfortunately lost that game. And then my second year, we ended up winning the first game. We beat Partizan. And I don't know if you guys recall, Jokic said something. He like airballed a shot this year, and Aaron Gordon, I believe it was Aaron Gordon, dunked it to win the game. And he recalled that happening, in the Final Four. I did that with Partizan. And I still get hateful messages from Partizan fans every single Final Four time. It's like, you cost us our chance at going to the final. But no, the Final Four is unlike anything I've ever seen. I didn't get a chance to play in the NCAA Final Four, so that's my closest comparison. But it's incredible energy. Obviously, they're in great cities, and so that was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
So I have 2 questions left. I'm going to ask them separately, and then we'll let you go. The first is, why Japan? Why wrap up your career there after all that you had accomplished? Simply because, no shade to the Japanese league, but it's not EuroLeague. It's not considered one of the top in the world.
Yeah, so the first time I went over, and this is also kind of how I did Sydney too. There's places that I wanted to visit. I'd never been. And you play in the NBA or in Europe, and I'm going back to Australia again. The seasons always, the seasons are opposite. And so having a chance to play in the summer there was phenomenal. But also with Japan, I'd never been, always wanted to go. And so what better way to see a country than to go play in a country? And so that was the first time I went over. The second time, I developed such a great relationship with the coach. He's a young, he's I think born in Hawaii, but young American coach who just happened to be Japanese, that he actually called me about helping him get a couple other players. And in that process, I don't know if he was trying to poke me to come over, but that's what ended up happening. So I reached out to a few guys that I knew, and then I just said, well, I can come step in for a few months. And that's what I did. And so I ended up playing kind of like half a season to finish it out.
And the last question is comparing NBA experience versus playing in EuroLeague, I think in particular, but internationally. You talked a lot about the love for the game, and maybe I'm a little jaundiced because I'm around by guys like Andre Iguodala said it. He said, I love basketball. I don't necessarily love what it's become in the NBA. And so that's always front of mind, especially now that I'm diving deeper into the EuroLeague and seeing like that organic passion and the competition and that that authenticity that I sometimes feel has been lost on some level in the NBA. So you've experienced both, and as you step back and you look at all of your basketball experience, like, can you compare and contrast what you loved about them respectively and what they best represented?
You mean every place or just?
I think just in general, playing someplace else playing outside of the NBA versus playing in the NBA.
I got you. So I'll go with NBA first. NBA, I mean, obviously some of the best basketball players in the world, right? And but the NBA is an entertainment and media business that just so happens to be underpinned by some of the best basketball players in the world, and the players themselves have phenomenal interest and love in the game, but it is a business, right? And so that's the approach, and so it's evolved over time, and I think the entertainment piece of this business is what's driving the contracts to where they are now, the media rights deals and all that jazz. Whereas playing overseas, it is about the passion. I mean, guys get paid, but Boki, you lose a game, it's like your grandma passed away.
Yeah, you lose three. It's a problem, and it's a huge problem.
Grandma.
Yeah. I mean, we lost one game, I remember, and they came in and said, we're gonna take 10% of this month's salary. It's obviously we figured it all out, but it is definitely just a very different environment, different culture, and it is rooted in tradition and history, and the name on the jersey means something. You aren't just a part of another organization, like it's a family. And so every place that I've played outside of Japan, but every country, all these things, I always get Olympiacos fans coming to say hello to me, coming to my games. It means something to them. And so I think that's the difference. And I'm not saying that NBA fans are not the same way, but it is just a different sort of environment there, and it's rooted in tradition, foundation, and just a history. That I don't know if the NBA can replicate yet.
Yeah,
I'll just make a quick disclaimer that the 10% salary that they said that they'll take away, which happened to me as well. It was very common in Europe. If you lost games, that's not allowed anymore since we have the Player Association in EuroLeague, which wasn't there when we played. So just want to make sure that message gets out.
Yeah. We won a big game and they forgot about it, so it wasn't.
Exactly.
There you go. There you go. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time and the effort in order to join us. This was a real pleasure. I'm glad to see that everything is going as well for you as it is. And hopefully one of these days, since I'm based in the Bay Area, we get a chance to catch up off air. That would be great for me.
Yeah. Josh, make sure you reserve that end of May time to be in Athens.
I definitely will. I definitely will. And I appreciate the opportunity to join you guys. Had a blast, and it took me back a couple of years. So I always enjoy, getting in a time capsule. So thanks for you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. That was Josh Childress joining us here, and so we didn't ask him a single question about gambling, even though that's the number one thing. I had at one point was going to ask him why he thought that, we haven't had that incident, or just kind of get his feedback on seeing that, because it right now it is the number one story in the NBA, in spite of the fact that we've got so much great basketball going on. It's a shame that has become the distraction. But I will start there with you, Boki, in terms of, we've never seen this in EuroLeague, to my knowledge. And I'm wondering, just as a guy who's played both there and in the NBA, your thoughts on seeing this become a scandal in the NBA.
I obviously surprised that it became so big so quickly. I mean, there were names mentioned in previous seasons, and some players getting Rozier included, getting named as possible players involved in these scandals. But what is becoming now, and me being almost afraid what's going to come, what more is coming.
Yeah,
it's huge. And obviously, I immediately think about the players here in Europe and the comparison to this. It's true, we didn't have that in EuroLeague, and I hope it stays that way. In EuroLeague does use a company that tracks betting and any kind of anomalies and all that. So that's regularly done. So the fact that there hasn't been any suspicious uptick in any kind of betting or something like this is good. But I am kind of careful here, because maybe this big scandal is going to, let's say, up the game a little bit, right? From the people who are looking into these things, and hopefully not just basketball players in EuroLeague, but athletes in general are going to take notice, because gambling has become, or betting, I should say, has become such a big part of sports worldwide, that I can totally see it an issue in many different leagues, many different sports. And EuroLeague itself, just to quickly answer this, many clubs do have betting sponsors. Betting is present. It's not like it's forbidden, or athletes obviously have their restrictions, but it's the same here. It's out there, like it's on every corner. Some countries more than others, but the betting itself is very present in sports.
Yeah, well, and I believe we've seen. Or certainly there have been scandals reported in soccer and in other sports, right? And so my first thought was, okay, maybe EuroLeague basketball, there's some element about EuroLeague basketball that doesn't make it conducive for gambling, and so there's not as much betting on it, or there's not as much money to be won and lost, or I don't know. I'm looking for a reason, because look, if it's possible for someone to do something illegal, they don't care what it is, right? And I don't know that EuroLeague would necessarily have the wherewithal to put up defenses that the NBA doesn't have.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'd like to think that players here simply care less about betting in general. But that kind of, I'm not really sure about that. Why do I say that? Because I've seen examples of lower leagues of that happening in basketball. Outside EuroLeague, domestic leagues, maybe second, third division.
In basketball,
I've heard rumors. I've heard things that such things are happening here and there. It just hasn't gotten to the level of EuroLeague, at least not yet. And like I said many times already, I hope it stays that way. I would hate to see a player's career ruined for something like maybe winning 20,000 euros or something like this, which of course can be seen as a lot of money, but compared to a career, our career earnings, it's something we're definitely going to monitor even more closely now. Even though EuroLeague, like I said, it had already the system set up, and we always talk to players about it. But now it's going to become one of the major topics here as well.
Is there organized crime in Europe in general? Is there or are there organizations that are multinational or have, I mean, when you think of the mafia in the United States, you probably think of New York primarily, Chicago or whatever, but it really is, its reach is national.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Sorry.
So I'm just wondering, is there a similar organization or a similar threat in Europe that would be trying to control betting in a particular sport?
I haven't seen it in basketball, to be honest. I cannot name or even think about an organization to say, yeah, it's present. Might be, but it's definitely. And I'm strictly going here by just conversations I have, by rumors, not any kind of direct information. But I see it that when I talk to people in football, there is much more present there than it is in basketball. I mean, soccer in Europe is compared to NBA, NFL, to the money that is involved there, right? Like EuroLeague is still lower league compared to the earnings, or the revenue. So maybe that's why. But no, I can't say that there is a criminal organization that would be involved in sports that I would be able to name it. No.
So one of the byproducts of the scandal involving Chauncey Billups, the head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, is that he has been removed for the foreseeable future, and Tiago Splitter has been promoted to the acting head coach. And this is the second time in the last 4 or 5 months that we've had a coach get dismissed. Taylor Jenkins was dismissed by the Memphis Grizzlies, and the Finnish coach, I'm going to have you pronounce his name the first time so that we get it correctly.
Thomas Iisalo.
Yeah. I don't think you got it right.
I don't speak Finnish, so
I'm feeling better about that now. But Tiago Splitter was named as the replacement for Chauncey Billups. I found that particularly interesting because Nate Bjorken, who was the head coach of the Indiana Pacers 4 years ago or so, is also on that staff, and they decided to give it to Tiago, who had 1 year of being the head coach at Paris basketball. And the rest of the time, he's had a little more experience as an NBA assistant coach, and I found that interesting that they would go that direction. What do you take from the fact that Memphis made the move that they did with Thomas, and that now we have a second European matured coach taking over a team?
Yeah, I do believe there is a there's obvious connection. Like both were in Paris before, right? They both coached a Paris basketball team. But my point is that Paris basketball in EuroLeague, since they joined EuroLeague a couple of years ago, they play a very specific type of basketball, an up-tempo, high volume shooting, especially threes. Really like a refreshing type of game that we haven't seen in EuroLeague before Paris kind of joined in. I'm not going to say they revolutionized the game or the style of play, but they've brought something completely new to EuroLeague, right? TJ Shorts was there last year. They have a couple of other amazing. Nadir Hifi, he's playing there this year, top scorer in EuroLeague currently. They have that style of play. So my point is that if I would have to choose one team that probably plays the most NBA-like game in EuroLeague, would probably be Paris over the last year or year and a half, whatever.
Interesting.
So maybe there's a connection there to say, hey, we have a coach that actually played that style of play there. Yeah. He would maybe fit in more as a head coach, as an interim head coach at least, because there would be a connection there to the style of play and how they see the game. Maybe. Again, I'm not involved in decisions or information in Memphis or Portland, but that's kind of the connection that I'm making there. And it probably, I think it does make some sense, to some point, because these coaches both also have head coaching experience.
Yeah. Well, the other connection is that David Kahn is the president of basketball for Paris basketball, and was and I don't know if he grew up, but I know that he worked and lived at a time in Portland, Oregon. So he has connections there as well as to just basketball in general. And I actually texted him. I texted him before the show. I said, "Congratulations on getting another coach and NBA gig." And we exchanged some pleasantries. And what struck me is, and they're obviously Tiago and Chiomis Iisalo is how the name is pronounced.
Okay.
They're not the first. I mean, we've been seeing this for a number of years now, where we're seeing European coaches get the opportunity to coach in the NBA. We're not seeing it in the other direction. Like, I think TJ Parker, who is French American.
There's been a couple. I mean, maybe not. I mean, there's been a couple of head coaches. First of all, the David Blatt, the Chris Fleming, who was my coach, and Kyle Hines is coaching in.
I didn't want to say. I didn't mean like it's never happened.
Yeah.
It's very rare that it happens.
Correct. It's very rare. You see a lot of assistants that are American. I wouldn't say a lot. It's not like it's on every team, but you see that. But I think it's more. It has to do more with clubs being very, very traditional when it comes to choosing the coaches. And I think the coaching pool in EuroLeague in general is not very big. You see a lot of coaches who will move from team to team for years just because first of all, they're good coaches. And second of all, they have the trust of the people who are the decision makers in clubs. They have connection with players. They know the game. They know the EuroLeague game. They know the players, the plays.
Right.
So teams, just because of what we spoke, in previous shows, like the high pressure situations and win, teams don't really like to give head coaching jobs as to an outside coach is saying you have 3 years to work here. They want results immediately. So if you're doing that, who are you going to bring in? Well, somebody that knows the league.
Right.
And I think that's the main reason.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. So, but as the game becomes more and more international, I think you're going to see also more American coaches possibly coming here, which is at the end of the day kind of logical. I mean, it's flowing in both directions, players, coaches, and that's what's all becoming, right? The very international game.
Yeah. It just seems to be flowing, both players and coaches, a little more in one direction than the other. Although I will say that I talked to an agent who has a number of players that he's placed over in Europe. If I'm not mistaken, he worked with Spencer Dinwiddie, who just signed with Bayern Munich.
Yeah.
Or maybe he doesn't work with him, but he told me that was happening, right? And he was saying that it's also EuroLeague teams and organizations have become more comfortable with having American players and the style of play, and that there was a little bit of reluctance or uncertainty that they would necessarily be able to fit into the culture and the game, or that the kind of the mindset that they would struggle with that. It appears that they've gotten past that.
I mean, that's definitely a part of it, but I think another part is that salaries have been increasing a lot in EuroLeague over last decade or so. That's one thing. There's been new arenas that have been built, so they're NBA style arenas. It's easier for players then to choose to go somewhere where they know they're going to feel comfortable. The league has really professionalized itself, and I think that's the reason. So it's not fully surprising to me that not just summer signings, but since the season started, like you said, we've seen Spencer Dinwiddie, Taylor Horton Tucker, Jared Butler just recently. Now today they're talking about Campaign, who just got released to sign with Partizan. There's been more. Like those are, I would say, names that also casual NBA fans will know. They're not just some players who's been on a summer roster and never made it. Like, so it's really, really changing in that aspect. So that's why I say it is flowing in both directions. Maybe not with coaches so much, but definitely with players.
and I would imagine we'll get to a point if you have American assistant coaches over there and they get familiar. It's not just they're there for a couple of years, or they're not there kind of maybe babysitting a player that has been drafted but isn't playing in the NBA at this point.
Yeah.
That there becomes a familiarity and a comfort level that when you do make a change with the head coach, maybe you elevate one of those Americans into that role. I don't know that that's happened yet, but I could see that happening in the future.
I mean, definitely, but I also think it's going to be more and more important for EuroLeague clubs to have assistant coaches or people on their staff who are American, just because of the number of American players. Because if you want to lure an American player, you want to have somebody in your staff that can relate to this player, that can help this player. It's happening the other way around as well. Like a lot of NBA teams have international staff just because of, players will feel more comfortable having somebody that is international on the staff and so on and so forth. So that should be, in my view, also what EuroLeague clubs should be thinking, adding American coaches to the staff. For various reasons. Obviously, also because the game is changing and the game is different. But it's always good to have more people, more minds, so to say, on the staff, so that they be able to, put all these puzzles together. When you have a European player, when you have an American player, South American player, this and that. At the end, it's all like a puzzle that you're trying to put together. And like I said many times already, win, right?
Yeah,
that's the big thing.
Yeah. Well, speaking of winning and speaking of international players, Victor Wembanyama, 40 points, 15 rebounds. I think he was 15 for 90. It was some crazy number in terms of what he did. His dominance, and it wasn't just against any team. It was against the Dallas Mavericks, who at the beginning of the season, going into the season, said, I think they can be a top 4 team potentially in the competitive West. He did it against Anthony Davis. He did it against Derek Lively. Like, these are quality bigs, and that is a respectable defense. And he just looked like a man among boys. It was really a remarkable performance. And I just your thought in seeing a international player. We've seen great international players. We've seen Dirk. But we've never, I don't know, I can't recall an international player, even for Giannis or Jokic, to kind of have that kind of separation in a game.
I mean, it's funny because every time you think about this international player, like you said, Yao, like nothing we've seen. Dirk is nothing we've seen before. Then, I don't know if you want to say Luka, nothing like, Giannis, now, Jokic, like it's all these guys that you say they brought something that we just never seen before. But with Wembanyama, it's like we've nothing like we've seen before times 100. Because it's just so different in height that he has, athleticism, skill. And now he's getting stronger. Like his drives are like, I genuinely do not know year or two from now, when he becomes even more stronger and really grows into his body, like, how are you going to defend anything he does? Like, anything. It's basically going to be his decision what he's going to do. Like, it's going to be just what it's something that we really, really have not seen anymore, and it's ever. And I'm super excited, honestly, to follow his career. Hopefully he stays healthy, because that could be something that stands out.
That's the number one thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and maybe I'll make a bold statement, but I think he's on a highway to becoming an multiple-year MVP very quickly. Like, he might surpass some of the guys who might be in line to get MVPs in the next couple of years. Like, he'll just jump all over them. So I'm excited for that.
Which puts him in the position of potentially being the face of the NBA, which has never happened. And I've had this argument with any number of American fans who are like, no, it'll never happen. There'll never be a foreign player who is the face of the NBA. But I look at how the NBA is changing. I look at how well, and honestly, I think this is part of it, how well he speaks English and communicates, how thoughtful, like his whole package in terms of presentation, which is just part of it, right? And his game, I don't know how, if he continues on this path, how you can avoid having him as the face of the NBA, the most recognizable identity that the NBA has.
I mean, but my thing is, like, why would you try to avoid it? Like, embrace that. Like, he's, it's like you said, the kid is not just what he does on the court, but it's a smart kid, great English. He does so many things off the court.
Carries himself so well.
Carries himself like it's a perfect player, perfect person for that role. And I think it's going to happen. I think it's like I said before, as long as he stays healthy, I think it's unavoidable. That's the future of the NBA.
Yeah, it's wild to think of and we'll wrap here, as a foreign player, to think about the NBA and the foreign presence and the impact that is now. It feels as if the NBA belongs to the world, as opposed to it's a United States entity. Yeah. It feels like it is internet. It's the international. It's the IBA. It's the International Basketball Association. They may have to change their name, Boki, because just, I mean, we talked about it a little bit with Josh about the MVPs, right? Like, it's been years since there's been an American. Here comes Victor. Like, you're not getting past that guy anytime soon.
Yeah. And you still have Luka and SGA and Giannis and Jokic in line also. So
you may not have an American on the ballot. Like, Jason Tatum was just sneaking in on the 5th spot. He's got no shot if Luka stays healthy and Victor does what he does.
Yeah, I really do think, Rick, that next 5, 10 years, 15 years, whatever we're going to look in the future, like, it's the game, the sport, the world, or the world of sport is changing in that way. I think it's still hard for some people to accept that, international players in the NBA or American players impact in EuroLeague, but we can see it year by year is becoming more and more mixed in so many different ways, right? So, it is. I mean, that's an interesting one, like, change the name into international basketball. But who knows, in the future, like, as we spoke in the past, there's a lot of interaction, NBA Europe, EuroLeague now has a team from Middle East, in Dubai. Like, it's changing, and it will be exciting to watch what it becomes.
You know what? We didn't get to the game of the week.
Let's do it quickly.
Well, let's do it quickly, because tell us why you picked going into the game. They were the 14th and 15th ranked teams in EuroLeague.
Ranking doesn't mean anything in EuroLeague until later, because there's so many teams that are just so close to each other. It's not like you have teams that are fighting for championships and teams that are in the middle and teams that are rebuilding. There's no rebuild in EuroLeague. You're fighting for wins. But yeah, like the Turkish derby, Fenerbahçe and Efes being at home, it's always special when these teams play, especially not just from the same country, from the same city, basically. Both very experienced teams. Fenerbahçe being the last year's champion. Efes still missing some players that are injured. That is still trying to become who they are. They have also former NBA head coach Igor Kokoschko as their coach.
Yep.
So
how big was that upset?
I wouldn't say it was too big, just because Fenerbahce is the champion from last year. They're 3-3 now. They're still trying to find their way, but FS has been struggling early on this season just because they don't have everybody healthy yet. And I think they're going to be a very dangerous team. A little bit later, they're still trying to new coach, injuries. I expected that they will be able to give a little bit more resistance to Fenerbahce. Maybe the result, if you look at the score, looks easier than what it was. But I'm not surprised that Fener won. I think at this moment they're in better shape as a team than FS is.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I was shocked. That was their second home loss in a row, and 3 I think they already have this season. And as you've noted, like the home court in every game and all of that, it's not necessarily time to pull the alarm, but
this inner city derbies, they're always 50-50. They're a toss up.
Okay.
You never know. You never know. So yeah.
Fair enough. All right. We got it in. We got it done. And as you mentioned, like the world of basketball is just becoming more interlaced than it ever has been. And that's why we started this podcast, and we'll continue on because there is so much to get to. All of you out there, thank you for joining us. Boki, thank you as always. We'll do it again next week.
Sure. Until next time.